Michael Furman, who's actually is the second time here in our meetup. He had a great time last time, and he now came back. Michael is a very known and leading security architecture. He's currently the security architect in Tufin with a vast knowledge in technology and cybersecurity and application security and pen test. So, Michael, it's your stage.
Thank you, Leor. And thank you for organizing this great meetup. Thank you for previous lectures and for next one. And I will try to explain. Thank you for all people that are joining this meetup. And what I will try, I will explain you about OWASP Top 10, new release 2021 and what's new. And we will see who is OWASP and what is OWASP Top 10. And as I said, we will overview and understand what's new. So, couple of words about me. I have a lot of years in security, and I lead security architect. You can contact me via LinkedIn or read my blog or follow me on Twitter. And I do like to travel, to read books, and to listen to music. And a couple of words about Tufin. We are a market leader in security policy automation. We can help in zero trust. We help already for enterprise customers. We have a lot of enterprise customers in a lot of fields. We have a lot of segmentation networks and connect application in on-premise, firewalls, cloud, and Kubernetes. We'll help to these companies to handle security policies. We are a security policies company. Very important, we are hiring in many positions, so you can contact me and I will help you to find a great place in a great company. Okay, who is OWASP? It's non-profit organization. It's founded more than 20 years ago. Okay, so 20 years this organization helped to make the software security visible. It's great. It's, of course, it stands for Open Web Application Security Project. It's a great organization. I do like their conference, I do like their lectures, and of course, I do like OWASP Top 10. It's most successful of OWASP project. Here is a link, and it's 10 most critical web application flows and de facto application security standard adopted by PCI, adopted by Microsoft. It released every couple of years, every 3-4 years. Now we will discuss about 2021. I will do it fast because there is a lot of, we have 10 categories to go forward, and please visit this page. You will understand it better after my lecture, okay? So let's start. This is the list, okay? And this is the previous one. Do you see the difference? Do you see something missed, okay, in OWASP Top 10? And I will, what happens to cross-site scripting? What happens to XML external entities? What happens to insecure deserialization? If you will look here once again, we cannot see it. So first of all, maybe we can go and rest. But very important, by the way, that the order is also important in OWASP Top 10. And 0-1, it means highest risk category, and 10, it's less category. So the question once again, can we go and rest and see the issue that the issue still here, okay? It means that we still have cross-site script, we need to resolve it. We still have XXE, it's part of 0.5. We still have insecure deserialization, it's part of new categories, it's called software and data integrity. So we have, in addition to previous one, we have 3 new categories. We have insecure design, we have software and data integrity, and we have SSRF. And this is one picture at glance. You can see new categories, and we can see that merged categories and categories that change the time, but we have a lot of work to ensure that our web application is developed in secure way. So what can I do? Listen to my lecture, visit their site, and you will be able to develop your application in a secure way. Let's start from 01. A01 is broken access control. Okay, first of all, it's moved from the fifth position and moved up. And it means that broken access control is significant risk. Example, you have problem if your application, for example, has some resource that allowed to admin, and a regular user can access to this resource. Or even a user without authentication can access to your application and to access to your resources. Very important, we do have a dedicated broken authentication category, but still, if user access without authentication to your resources, it's broken access control. Additional example, if an attacker can view edit some else account, it's called IDOR. If you remember, once it was part of OWASP top 10, so it's also broken access control. Additional example is course. I will provide like some code examples, and if your application provides a service like get app info, an attacker try to guess maybe it admin get app info or get admin app info, and it's able to access with user permission, then you have broken access control. Additional one, just your application take account from the request and access to this account without any validation. An attacker modifies the parameter and can access to account info of other account. You just change it and access its IDOR, it's broken access control. Okay, how can you prevent it? Default behavior should be deny access. If you have this behavior, you improve your behavior of application in very good way. Implement access control, of course, on the server side and for all requests. And minimize course usage. Let's see how we handle it for the previous examples. If we will validate access on each request, then you will be able to, in implementation, to throw authorization error and will not allow to access to admin application info for regular user. Similar example for annotations, like Spring Security, if we authorize and check permission, and then if a user will not have permission, then it will be authorization error. Okay, verify ownership access for the second example. Just before execute query, just ensure that a user has access to this account, and in this case, just perform, in this example, just perform query. Otherwise, error. This way will allow you to handle the first category of access control. Oh, let's go to the second one, cryptographic failure. In the previous release of OWASP top 10, it was number 3, sensitive data exposure, but sensitive data exposure, it's like more symptom than a root cause. And if you transmit data over clear text, okay, or store data in clear text, you have a problem, okay? You have problem of cryptographic failure. If you use deprecated or weak algorithms like MD5, or, okay, so then you have a problem. Don't use this, okay? Don't use default crypto case. Ensure you use proper key management. I already started to explain you how to handle, but if you will encrypt all sensitive data at rest, and Yaniv explains that we need to encrypt data, and you encrypt data in transit, and you use your TLS 1.2 or above, you use up-to-date and strong algorithms, then you will be able to prevent A02. Okay, Let's talk about 03. Okay, so first of all, first time for a long, from OWASP to 2010, that it's not a first position injection. Okay, and when we have the problem, and if you take user input and concatenate it for the commands, what is the risk? SQL injection, it's very known example. If you take information and you concatenate with SQL queries, an attacker can access to all your database. And if you concatenate it with some OS command, an attacker will be able to execute OS command on your host, on your machine. So this is a risk. How can you prevent it? This is, by the way, example, famous example. Just take parameter of ID from the query without any validation, SQL injection. How can you prepare it? Use prepare statement. Don't pass user input directly to executable statement, and then you will be able to resolve the problem. How can you, now example, just take value from parameter, use prepare statement, and this code is without SQL injection. Okay, number 4. No, before number 4, I almost forget about cross-site script. Do remember that part of this 03. So what is cross-site script? Also famous example, alert cross-site script, and it means that your application is vulnerable to a cross-site script attack. In this case, how you protect? It's just input validation and code output. It will prevent you from cross-site script. Now we are approaching to 04. It's a new category. It's pushing shift left approach. What is shift left approach? If this is a regular step of development, requirement, design, implementation, verification, and the release. And shifting left means that we are trying to start security as early as possible. If you have secure design, then its implementation can be secure or non-secure. Then you have a way to implement. But if you have insecure design, you cannot fix it by even brilliant implementation. It means start and handle security as soon as possible. How we implement it? Threat modeling. Read the threat modeling manifesto. It's a new approach and will help you to handle threat modeling in your application. Implement SDL, Secure Development Lifecycle. I will point to my presentation, as Leo has mentioned. I already did in this meetup. I have described SDL, or you can access any SDL reference in the internet. Okay. Number 5, 05. Okay. If you use component without hardening, or you use some unnecessary reports, services, or accounts, default password, you have security misconfiguration. Okay. How to prevent it? Apply hardening. Use some recommendation, for example, CS benchmark. Close unnecessary port. For example, if you use Tomcat, close its port that allows shutdown. By default, it open. But if you will close it, it will not allow to an attacker to shut down your Tomcat. Okay? Disable services, remove default accounts, change default passwords, and it will allow to prevent secure misconfiguration. XXE. Now we remember that XXE is part of this issue. XXE is a problem that allow during XML parsing to access to your system or to access to your data. Okay, and now how we prevent it also is configuration. You need to change your configuration to prevent parsing. And once again, you can read my presentation where I describe how to handle XXE. Dear all, we have passed half of categories, and let's continue. Vulnerable and outdated components are described in category 06. This problem happens if you use vulnerable or unsupported or out-of-date components. I do hope that everyone knows about a recent Log4j vulnerability. So Java software that used vulnerable Log4j was vulnerable to GNDI attacks, and it was very serious vulnerability that shocked IT world. And this is example of this problem. If you use this type of diskette, maybe you need to update your components and you're vulnerable. Okay, how you handle it? Okay, just update your software periodically. Use some SCA, software components analysis tools. You can use free or commercial one. This is example of OWASP, additional OWASP project, OWASP dependency check. It's free tool that will help you to handle these issues. Okay, authentication and authentication failures. Oh, it slid down from the second position and previously known was broken authentication. Very important. We are talking about advanced features like multi-factor authentication, brute force protection. It was described by Sagi. It's part of 07. We are not talking about simple missed authentication. It just if you reuse session identifier or expose session identifier in URL, you have problem with this category. How you prevent it? Implement advanced techniques, implement brute force protection, implement multi-factor authentication, and add password policy, and you will be on the safe way. Number 8, okay, it's new category. And if you remember SolarWind attack, it's an example of this failure. If you use some component without data integrity, without checking of data integrities, you are vulnerable for this problem. Okay, how to prevent it? Ensure that you use trusted repositories. Ensure that you use digital signature to verify software. And this will allow to use verified trusted components and will prevent this problem. If you remember, insecure deserialization is also part of this big category. It's just serialization, you just transfer object over some way, and then during deserialization, you convert it back to this object. And insecure deserialization, if an attacker can change an object between serialization and deserialization. How can you prevent it? Okay, you don't access a serialized object from an untrusted source, and this will allow you to prevent it. Oh, number 09, it also was described by Yaniv, insufficient login. If you don't have in your application login about logins, failed authentication, or high value transaction, then in case of attack, it will be difficult to find where the problem, how an attacker was able to attack your application. Of course, if you log your logs only locally, then an attacker can access this log and change it. You need to store it in some remote host. Okay, so how to prevent? Like, log important information. Okay, log it with sufficient user context like username, client, and IP and time, and then you will be able to prevent this problem. Dear all, we are approaching to the last category. It's new one, it's new category called SSRF. It's very confused name with CSRF, okay? And then I will describe it. So it's like, where's the problem? If web application just create URL from the some parameter and access to remote resource without validation. For example, if the first server where reside your application serve like service get image and take parameter as URL, and if an attacker will be able to access to 10.0.0.1 to remind you 10.0.0.1 its internal IP, and the server will access to this internal IP and attack this internal server and will provide a response, an attacker will gain from the response. Even the first application is protected by firewall. In this case, you're also vulnerable to this attack. This is example in a via code. So just like implementation of the service, get image implementation. So image URL, just take parameter, and without any validation, create this URL. What happens next? You just take this image and return a response. And if you will go back to the attacker example, attacker provide the URL, and what happens? He will be able to attack the server. You can ask, why should I implement this way? Is it attack real? Yes. This is a real CV, it's a real example. One example is of Apache HTTP server high CV, and the second one, OpenID Connect, it's a critical CV. So it means that you need to think about this possibility and to prevent it. How you can prevent it? Sanitize and validate your client input data, validate URL components, schema, port or destination, and of course, don't send a response to client. And if you will look at our examples, then just possible to take parameter, but validate schema, port, and destination. In case of any violation, return error. And then you will be able to prevent this problem. Dear all, we are approaching to the end. It's takeaways. Our takeaways, you understand what is OWASP 10, implement the recommendation, learn it, and you will be able to create your application in secure way. And I want to thank you, and please contact me via LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Okay, guys, if you have any questions to Michael, please write them down in the chat. If you have any, please write them down. Wow, Michael, a lot was changed, or not?
A lot was changed. A lot was changed. We have a lot of works, and especially I think threat modeling is very important change, because we need to think shifting left will allow us to start what security as early as possible. And we have a lot of work as all security professionals. We have a lot of work to do to create our security application in a more secure way.
Okay, thank you, guys. If you have any questions to Michael, please write them down. I think it was very explainable, Michael. So it was, I think, insightful and very understandable what was changed in the past year. I think it was just last year that they updated the new one, and now there is a new one, or 2 years ago, and now they are adapted it. You know, I think that's also the reason why the landscape was changed a bit, and was top 10 always researching the new attacks, the new scenarios. So we need to adapt as well. There is a question coming from Nir. Nir is asking, Michael, do you recommend OWASP SAMM, SAMM, as a good SSDLC program for developers? What is your insight on that?
Yes, thank you, Nir, for your question. SAMM is also additional example of OWASP projects, and yes, it allows to start SDL in the good way. It allows to rank. It allows to give a grades to all your process, okay? And it's a good way to, you know, to add controls, okay? And once again, you can use it. I still think that there is a learning curve. It's not so simple, okay, but it's very good. It's very good, like revert on investment. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you can read my presentations. Also a good way to start this there.
Of course. I think we all need to align with the best practice. Also, Yaniv talked about it, the regulation out there, what are the standards, and based our security on that standard. But we need, of course, to understand our organization and the data flow and what are the risk posture in our organization, and actually taking those best practices, but adapt them to what we are developing, or the developing process, or the product that we are developing, or the business case, the use cases, and of course, secure them. Eventually, we are securing the business, performing a business enabler as much as we can.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much for your lecture.